Good morning everybody, and on today's episode of PincheAls Garage, we're back on the Jetta, and we're going to do a very simple wire tuck on the left side, or aka the passenger side of the engine bay. Once this is done, we're going to work on the driver's side as a second part of the DIY. We'll make a second DIY for this side. There's really not much we can do over here on the driver's side, but we're going to film it and walk you through everything, obviously. So here on the left side, let's get to work. On the left side, one of the most important things you guys are going to notice here is on this loom, there's a lot of extra things coming out of it. Since we're doing a coolant ball delete over here on the left side, we need to know what's what and what we don't need on here as well. Since we're not using the wiper bottle anymore, this tube can be removed. Just unravel all the electrical tape from the back all the way over here, which we're going to do right now in just a minute. And then we got to identify these wires as well. Number one, we have right here the headlight harness, which is super easy identified. It's the largest piece here. Then the next one that's going to matter is obviously your turn signal right here. And then you have these two extra ones. Now they look identical because they probably are. The biggest thing is that one of them is 2-wire, like really thin, and one's really thick. And these are, you'll see this one's smaller and this one's larger. The larger one is actually part of your coolant ball. Not coolant, but your wiper reservoir. This one is actually the one for your hood sensor here, so it knows when your hood is locked. This is the one we need to keep in mind. So these two are super important. These two right here. Everything else over here can be unraveled, and then we'll actually no, same with the light here. This one will have to sit with this guy. So everything else here can be unraveled, and then we will have to cut this guy right here so we can pull the wiring out of the loom. Once we do that, then we'll be able to cut the harness right here, feed the wire through, and then resolder everything back together, and then plug everything in. And that's pretty much how we're going to do the tuck. Now let's start unraveling most of this wiring here to get to work. So here we're going to unravel from this spot right here. So we're not going to no longer use the split loom here. Is no longer needed because we're gonna re-electrical tape all this wiring. And work our way down. And the reason why we want fresh electrical tape, we just want it for the safety, number one. Number two, it just looks so much better with nice clean electrical tape on here. And make it nice and snug, and then we can definitely identify more of the wires a lot quicker too. It helps a lot. Let's see here. And then some of the wires that you don't need can be pulled and moved out of the way as well, which is really nice. Now, one thing I can tell you guys, if you guys are scared to do this, please don't do it. If you guys don't know how the technical know-how on how to solder or the patience to solder, just don't. I recommend just don't do it. Okay, so that's all separated. Now we're going to work over here on this part of the loom, and we got to find more tape. What I like to do on this part is I like to separate, again, it's just stuff that we won't need, and identify what we do need. This is the coolant ball level sensor here. Before you put this one away, you're going to grab a paper clip and literally just connect the two connectors here inside here. So bend the paper clip in a hoop, push them in, cover it in electrical tape, and forget it. Okay, so that one's super easy to make that sensor not come on again. So we're going to grab this. We got to go grab our handy dandy Phillips screwdriver, so I'll be right back. So grab this guy right here. Now over here, if you ever want to replace your cabin filter, this is where it's at actually. So that'll be a quick little thing you guys can learn how to do. So this is actually your cabin filter right here, guys, just to give you a heads up on that. And as you can see by the looks of it, it's probably never been replaced. Which is fine, because no one ever replaces these things. So here is the grommet where your loom sits. This primary loom here. This is the O2 sensor one down below. We're not going to touch that. We're going to only be working on this one right here. So you can go about it two ways. You can definitely put the effort and try to pull the wiring through it, which is not easy to do. I don't know how they do this in the factory. It's pretty crazy, and how tight these grommets are. But they do a good job, that's for sure. Now remember what you unplugged and what you need to keep in, because what you're going to hide and not hide. So this one right here is the AC one, so that has to stay out of that, inside the loom. We cannot push that one through, so we got to remember that. So here, number one is that tube that we talked about. We're never going to reuse, we're never going to use this one, so definitely try to grab it and feed it on out. And this is the part where I'm going to, like, you know what, it's too much work, we're going to cut it. So one of the things that you're going to need to focus on is being super careful. So I have a set of little snips here, and what we're going to do is on the underbelly of this grommet, we're going to cut the grommet, okay? And the way that I do my cuts is that I go and follow the main line and I pull up on it, so I know for a fact that I'm not touching any wire, so I'm not going to cut a wire and then cause some major damage. We are going to cut these wires, but we're not going to cut them here. We're going to cut them in a different spot. And then now this grommet is now removable for right now, but we're going to keep this and reuse it. So these two wires, these two sensors are useless to us now. Again, one of them is for the motor on the wiper reservoir. This is the coolant ball. So we got to remember to put a paper clip in the wiper, not the coolant ball. Level one has to have a paper clip in it. This one doesn't need anything. However, the other one that has the sensor right here for the the ball level is this guy. That's going to require a paper clip in this one as well. So we're going to unravel that one and then feed it along that way because we're not going to need it. That's a part of its own harness as well. And just take your time when you guys are yanking wires. Just don't pull so hard. This is all for your car's safety, so just be careful when you're yanking, when you're pulling stuff out, guys. So now we have these 3 pigtails out of the way. What we can do is that we can fold them like that. So when we put the new reinstall the grommet, they're just out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, and it looks still really good inside the bay. Now we're back over here. So now we have these 2 main wires. These are the ones that we really care for. I mean, not wires, but these 2 parts of the loom that we really care for the most, which is our headlight and our turn signal, and that's the level. So we have to click that one out. I mean, not click it out, but we have to get that one out. Oh, we forgot one. Where is he? Oh, and this one. This one's the one. I'm sorry. I'm losing my way. Okay. These are the 3 that we need. Turn signal, headlight, and the hood sensor. This guy is super important. So what we can do is I would tape them off, each sensor. Each sensor taped off. Cut them because they all have different wires, except for like the headlight sensor here. They all have different ones, but the ones that are different from the others, what you're going to want to do is label them so you can identify them correctly. For example, here, this one, the way you can tell this one's different, that this one has a red stripe, this has no stripe, so that's an easy one to cut. But over here, like this one with the extra with 4 wires, they're all different. So this can be cut, but this guy for the headlight, it's a little different. You'll see here there's 2 brown ones that have no clear identification on which one's different and which one's not. So what I would do is cut this one and tape it, so I know that tape it on both ends, so I know these 2 match together, where this one can just be cut because it doesn't have anything to identify it. And that's how we identify it, is that it has nothing with it to make sure that's it. I know it's a little weird, but that's how I do things, and it works perfect for me. You might have a different way of doing it, and please share down below in the comments and explain how you would do it. I definitely appreciate to learn from others as well. So now you'll see here, this is the wiring that we need. This is all we need to get this taken care of. Everything else is going to be tucked in out of the way. Now, if you see where this wire is, we're going to go over and make a left. And down here to the left, there's a hole. It's hard to see, but it's right down there. It's a drainage hole. So that hole is inside this fender right here. You can fit your arm inside this fender all the way down. You're going to feed the wire through, and you're going to try to get it through there by hand. Okay? Now, some people put the effort into bending that hole as best they can and then feeding the wire through there. Now, you can probably feed one or two of them without doing that, but this one we're probably not going to be able to. So let's give it a try and see what happens. So we're going to see if this fits. Nope. Oh wait. Yeah, this one. Okay, the first half of the sensor fit. Let's see if the other one does. Nope. There you go. Okay, so now we're going to start taping certain sections off of the loom here. So what I want to do is I want to be able to pull the loom all the way through and then be able to solder it over here on the end right here. So that being said, I'm going to tape it off right here. For the headlight harness first. And remember we were talking about those wires that have similar colors, these two right here. So we're going to grab our little snip. We're going to snip this one first. I know it's scary, but I did it. And we're going to tape this guy off. Just like this. Okay? And we're going to tape the other end off. Same way. To identify this for the other side. So now we know that this one and this one are identical. These don't change. And every other one that we have here can just be cut, and then that's it. That way we can identify them as once we're ready to solder these in back together. So now this whole loom, the headlight loom, is now completely ripped off, disconnected. But the good news is that every wire on this loom is different, again, except for these two. And the way I can identify them is that one of them is taped off and the other one isn't. Same on the other end. One is taped off and the other one isn't. So then I know what two have to go together. So we're going to do this loom first and feed it through. Actually, we're probably going to do all of them now. Probably be the smarter thing to do, but keep them separate. So we'll tape every one off to match up the length that we cut them with. And we want to tape them off so we don't mix wiring, which is also super important. And then again, just look at all the wires individually, making sure you can identify every single one clearly. That way, when you start soldering, you know what goes where. Okay? So we got that loom disconnected, cut off, and this one cut off. And then this one, pretty much same thing. Out of the way. And then now what we want to do now is we want to get this part of the loom loosened and pulled over to the left so we can get some extra slack for this, because we are going to need a little bit more extra wiring, because we are going left, so we are cutting ourselves about, I'd say 10-12 inches short from the factory loom. So to solve this problem, we have to accommodate and pull this loom right here that's already covered. We got to cut the little holder for it and pull it over to the left as far as we can without damaging anything, which you're only going to get like maybe an inch or two, which is just enough. So I'm here, I'm going to start wrapping my loom with electrical tape before I transfer everything over.
That's the only thing. I don't know if it starts getting on that top piece. Yeah.
Now what we're trying to do is make sure that this electrical tape is nice and snug and round. We don't want to put too much on here. So what I'd like to do is I go one way and then I reverse my my wrap here, and then I go the opposite direction. That way it's just a really nice tight seal on it, and it's just really well secure. Okay.
So maybe we get that at least one side straight through, and then we know how much exactly we have for lanyards.
Another big reason why you also want to do it like this is because when you feed it through the fender, it will actually not get caught. Again, I'm going back the other way now. Almost done. So here we're gonna feed the wire down in here. Now the catch is to get it at an angle, and then you're gonna cram your arm into the fender, and you'll feel the fender liner. This is one way of doing it. If that doesn't work, then you can always go through underneath the fender liner and try to cram your hand underneath the fender liner and look for it. Okay, so now we fed the wire through here. We electrical taped this guy, which had the coolant ball and the motor here for the wiper reservoir, had the motor for the pump. This is for your N80 valve that sits over here for your blue balls, is what they're known for. That one you don't need to do anything with, just dump it over there. Same with that one, but we're going to put the paper clip on that. Then we electrical taped pretty much this wire for the AC and everything else. So you'll notice everything else is out of the way, pushed in this way. So now we're going to go back to the grommet that we just cut. We're going to wrap these guys back in it, just like that, and turn it upside down. So we're going to see what we need to, we got to tape this still, but look at that. If we look at it the way it used to look, no more wiring. That's a wire tuck. That's a very simple wire tuck. Obviously we're not going for shape bay status, we're just showing we're going for a clean bay, and this is the easiest way you can do it without doing a crazy amount of work on the left side, aka the passenger side of the engine bay. The next thing here we're gonna do is, see, I pulled the loom out already. We're gonna solder all these wires back so we can get back to working with this, and then hook everything up to the where it's supposed to go. But that was pretty much it. I'll show you guys the soldering process next. So now what I'm doing to the grommet is that we're taping the bottom half of it like it was before from the factory, just so we don't get any parts moving around. Just a little bit of tape, don't need much. Snip that bad boy off. Look at that, beautiful. Looks like we never even modified it. Now remember, always cut the this grommet from underneath, that way you don't see the cut. You kind of hide that out of the way, you know, make that look really, really good. And now the next part is these guys are going to be out of the way, and then we got all this to work on now right here. Now remember what we did earlier, we separated everything. So headlight harness, this thing, and then this thing. I know what they are, but we're gonna, obviously everything's nicely separated. You guys can see that, beautifully done and executed, and now you guys can just solder your stuff together and plug everything in on this side. Now the downside of this is that obviously you can't wire tuck this side over here unless you extend these wires a good extra foot. If you do that, then you'll be able to actually tuck the wire underneath and over it and plug them in. That's the only other way of doing that. And the way you can do that is getting an extra harness from your engine bay to extend your wiring. You always, depending on how you're going to tuck wiring, always get a second engine harness, because you do not want to use cheap wires. Don't buy aftermarket wiring, because number one, you're going to change the color coordination of your wires. So if you're going to need a tracer wire, it's going to be very, very hard to identify that, number one. Number two, it's easier to have matching wires when you solder, so that way you can color coordinate and do the job correctly. Number three, each wiring actually has different gauges. You'll notice a lot of these wires are different diameter or thicknesses, because they actually have a different gauge wire inside. The reason for this is surely for the fact of resistance. The different resistance allows for proper voltage going to whatever component it's going to power. So those are kind of the reasons why you see these different size wiring. Best example obviously is over there on the right side of the engine bay. You'll see all the really big thick red wiring. Those wires again are super important due to the fact that those power a lot of high voltage, high ampage actually, equipment. So now we're going to go get my soldering iron, some heat shrink, and a lighter. Alright, so now we're back here and we're going to show you the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a wire stripper, a lighter, some solder, soldering iron, and then your heat shrink here. Heat shrink is the most important thing you need to have on this entire DIY, because you don't want to build any moisture inside these copper lines. Building moisture will create what's it called, rust or tarnishment, or just different words for it, and will change the resistance of the copper wire, which will end up will create like a snowball effect in your quality, or you might have a short down the road. It's just really bad. Make sure you guys keep that in mind, please. So the first wire we're gonna do is not this one. We're gonna do a simple one. Where do we put it? Yeah. I just had it in hand too. I hate that.
But I'll have to double check.
Here it is. Okay. This guy. Now, when you strip these, make sure to strip these not too much. Oh, or too hard. Okay. Make sure your copper is nice and clean on here. We're going to strip these guys over here. Now the way that I do these is we're going to color match number one red and red, so that's those two. We're going to grab our thing of heat shrink here. Now we don't want to get too small of a diameter, we probably want to go up in size. And the reason for this, give me a second here. And the reason for this, because when you twist the two cables together, you got to be able to push it through. So going up in diameter definitely does help. So we don't need a ton of heat shrink, so what I do is I cut the heat shrink in half. And I, you know, slip it on through to here. One side at a time. So, and then what we do, we're going to grab this guy and this one, and we're not going to twist them together. We're going to twist them, but kind of in a linear pattern. And the reason for this is because you need to be able to, again, to slip the heat shrink over. And if it doesn't work, then you're going to strip the wire just a little bit more. Don't go crazy in how much wire you strip, because it has a reverse effect on you. Okay? Because you'll make the wire too short. Then we're going to twist them together. So you guys can see that. It's got a nice little twist together. And what you're going to do is, as a quick test, slide your heat shrink over. And that should be good. Now, if you think it's too short, definitely push them closer together. And again, it's nice and snug like this. And the reason why I do it this way is when you lay solder down, the solder will evenly coat the area much nicer than twisting them together like a little tower. I think it's just much better results when you do this. Now this is literally a 20-year-old soldering iron that I got from my aunt, and it works well. It works, but it's not a really good soldering iron. I wish I had a better one. But again, you know, we got that budget life. We do everything what we can, what we can afford. So this soldering iron for some reason is hotter on the tip, I mean on the side versus the tip, which is kind of complete opposite of what you're supposed to be able to solder. And then usually you have a special tool to hold these guys for you, so you don't have an issue with, you know, holding stuff. And remember guys, a little solder goes a long way. It doesn't need to be blobbed up on here. What I like to do is kind of move it back and forth and spread it around. Now to confirm if your soldering job did good, you want to yank on it and make sure it doesn't come apart, just like that. Now I notice I have little tiny little thorns that I got out of it, so what I do is I just trim those thorns off super quick, just like that. Then we're going to pull our heat shrink right over. Center it, just like that. And then we're going to use our lighter and give that a good roasting. Just like that. Awesome, awesome job, guys. So that's one. We still got another 15 more wires to go. I'm going to pump through these. I'm going to talk to you guys when I'll show you guys the final results once we're done. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Alright, so we're back. So you can see here, all the wiring has been soldered and heat shrinked. And again, you have to do this for number one, for the resistance to be accurate. Number two, for your safety. You want all of this to be heat shrinked. You don't want any bare wires showing. And number three, it just looks so much better to do that than putting blobs of tape to make everything look nice. That's just being lazy, guys. Now, what we're going to do is go all the way back here, and we're going to wrap this loom again. Now, when you put your bumper back on, you have to remember that we did get the turn signal right here, so that matters a lot. So that's going to be fed this way. So make sure you don't wire up your turn signal with your headlight together with it. Kind of separate that from this part of the loom. And then with your headlight loom, you're going to have the hood sensor plugged into it, or not plugged into it, but in the loom. Okay. So I'll show you guys that in just a second. Let me separate this stuff here. So your hood sensor and your headlight all one piece. Now over here we got, this is the level for the level sensor pigtail for the wiper reservoir. So you need to put a paper clip in that guy and then wrap it in tape, and then you got your turn signal. Okay, your side marker turn signal is what we call it. So we're going to wrap this guy up. Now, usually what happens is when you cut wiring and you solder it, obviously the lengths change a little bit. You'll see that right here in this. What you want to do is kind of like twist them in like this. That way you don't bend the wire drastically. Just a little twist, and that won't damage anything. It'll look really good as well. Just go all the way to where you think you want to stop. Just like that. Check it out. Beautiful, beautiful loom done. Now we have our wire tuck. Just like that, and then just plug and do your stuff. Again, the one that's on the turn signal, the pigtail that's on it, this one right here is for your level on your reservoir for your wipers. Since we deleted it, we need to put a paper clip in here, because if not, you're going to get a light on your dash. Okay, and then same thing with your level here, on your loom over here, this guy, the one with the 90 degree, this is the coolant ball reservoir level sensor pigtail. Same thing, you're going to need to put a paper clip inside this one. This one will take that light off your dash as well. Everything else can go in here. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is an SAI deleted car, so this has a smog system deleted on this car. So when that happens, you need to make sure this car is tuned for the delete. If not, the car will run poorly. That's a very, very important fact that you guys need to know. Either get your resistor kit or get the car properly tuned for doing this DIY. Okay, guys? But that's it. That's how we wire tuck the passenger side of your engine bay. We'll come back next time and we'll do the driver's side. As you can see, that's really bad. I'm actually going to be working on that next, so I will make another episode for this disaster. This is way more work over here involved next, so we're going to get to that. We're going to put all the wiring in and everything, and then start doing actual like management and making it look proper. So thank you again, everyone, for this awesome episode of PincheAls Garage. And as always, we're going to break, we're going to fix, and we're going to repeat, because that's what we do here. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Peace out.